Story 1. A final walkthrough inspector told me if my name is on the job, he just signs off on it because I'm a perfectionist, and he can concentrate on jobs that he knows are going to be trouble. Story 2. I know you are overwhelmed and stressing out, but you keep it together well and keep going. In regards to working in the part of the kitchen, I had no experience with. Story 3. I was told I always had a lovely smile on my face and seemed so happy. I cried afterwards because I hated that place, but I worked with children and people with disabilities, so it was nice to know that they didn't know I hated it there. Story 4. My boss's boss told me that my shift reports are so thorough that he printed one out and brought it to the other houses as an example of what he wants shift reports to look like. That made me proud. Story 5. I actually had this written on one of my yearly evaluations. You're a jerk, but without you, our group wouldn't be nearly as productive and successful as it has been. Story 6. A teenage girl and her mom were dining at the restaurant I was working at the time. The mom told me that her daughter said I reminded her of an MTV video girl. I wasn't sure what that meant, so I asked, and she said, "You just have a lot of confidence." I think about this all the time. Story 7. A couple of months ago. You're a good leader and you're an asset to the company, and we'd hate to lose you. This would matter more if last year I had gotten more than a 40-cent an hour pay raise and had actually gotten a pay raise this year. Yes, my resume is out there, and the moment I get a higher-paying job, I am done. Story 8. I'm a pretty hairy guy. I'm Italian. So one day I decided to do something about it. I shaved my full body, bow to stern, and I was smooth as a dolphin. The next day at work, my boss told me that he had never seen such a not unattractive-looking person before. He said he was very impressed with the initiative I took to improve my appearance. It made me feel really good about myself. Story 9. We need to learn how to clone you was something all the bosses would say to me, and it made me feel good. Only now, with some time and a post-business collapse, do I realize they only said that because I never complained about the horrible working conditions and outrageous hours. Story 10. I had a very average-paying job, managing people and assets. I emailed asking nicely for a pay review, as I was covering another role and my workload was overwhelming. In 2 weeks, with 3 various levels of management included in the email, including the billionaire owner's son-in-law who was the chief operating officer, I received 0 replies. I handed in my notice. My boss was shocked but took no action or rebuttal. 6 months later, I found out they needed to hire 3 people to pick up my workload, plus my boss created a new position for himself to delegate work onto, which he used to do to me. Finding out they needed for people to cover what I was doing, plus the business still wasn't performing as well as during my time, was all the compliment I needed. Story 11. Someone once told me, "You make everything run smoother and somehow make it look easy." It felt great to know my efforts were noticed, even if I was probably running on caffeine and stress. Story 12. That was smart. A simple comment, but it saved the general contractor a headache. I'm a plumbing subcontractor, and I took some pictures of a gas valve in a wall, complete with measurements and everything, because I assumed the drywall guys would cover it over. Fast forward a few months, and the general contractor calls me asking for ideas to reroute the gas line and valve because they couldn't remember exactly where it was and couldn't continue with the new custom fireplace mantle until they knew exactly where the valve was. And they didn't want to damage all the drywall looking for it. So I texted him the photos. He just replied, "That was smart," in a very genuine, grateful tone. Story 13. My former boss at my company told me before I switched shifts that I'm a great employee and to keep up the good work. Show those on the first shift that you are. You've had some bumps along the way, but you've persevered quite nicely. I'm proud of you. It felt great to hear that, confirming what I know about myself through my work, just like my dad did. Story 14. I did customer support for Verizon. Someone called about their bill. I took them through it step by step. When we were done, he said, "Your husband is a lucky man." Story 15. As a basketball referee doing a high-level juniors game that ended very close. The losing coach told us we did a fantastic job refereeing the game. It's rare enough getting a compliment, but from the losing coach, it is basically unheard of. Absolutely made my day. Story 16. I was recently informed that I did not get a role in a team for which I thought I was underqualified. I did not hear back for 2 weeks. The hiring manager called me and said she had been discussing me the whole time. Her concern was that I would outgrow the role and be too advanced for the team after 6 months. Therefore, she's opening up a role in a higher leadership team for me to move into. Going from thinking you did not get a role to being told they liked you so much they wanted you in a better position was incredible. Story 17. In a past role, I worked in procurement for a multinational company, including hosting potential Chinese suppliers on site visits. After one such visit, I shared some photos with the Shanghai office and received this email back. In the photo, you are so handsome that our colleagues here said you could elevate yourself by appearance, maybe become a model in the fashion industry, and wouldn't need to be an engineer. Haha. Still gives me that warm, fuzzy feeling. Story 18. I was a young developer going through some things with the boss. I showed him how I had solved a problem, and he just said, "Oh, you were good." I still get a warm feeling about that. Story 19. I am a mason and specialize in the repair of 1700s and 1800s old brick walls. I had a meeting with a heritage architect and the owners of this particular job. Everybody looked at the wall in question and had to pull out their emails to see the before images as nobody could make out where the repairs had taken place. The new work was seamless with the existing. They all got close and talked out of my hearing, and the architect said, "Good work, Bilinky Bill. High praise indeed from this very particular man. He gives me most of my work now. I don't even have to quote. I just submit the invoices." Story 20. My team, you actually take the time to explain things to us and why they are done the way they are instead of just telling us what to do like all the other managers. Good to know they appreciated the extra effort. Story 21. End of year appraisal in 2022. Worked in a boarding school. Got praised for over 30 minutes by my boss, and she follows up with, "And in saying all that, you can't stay here. I want you doing something better with your life. Go plan a better career for yourself, and I want to see you getting out of here." So I started thinking about what I wanted to do with my life. Stayed for a bit because I needed consistent income to pay for my cat's medical treatment, then started on the path to figuring out my life. I'm now chasing a locksmithing apprenticeship and couldn't be more excited. Story 22. Some of my favorites have been, you're a unicorn in the world of donkeys. Grateful for the way your brain works. Pretty big one from executive director in the room full of directors. It's visible and highly positive you're not just a seat warmer for my new subordinates. Love my job. Story 23. One of the technicians who would come to fix our machine when it broke suggested that I should apply to their company because I was already better with the machines than some of the technicians. I sometimes think I should have taken him up on that. The money was better, but fixing broken machines can be incredibly frustrating and stressful, especially when you know the problem was caused by an operator who doesn't know what they are doing, half of my coworkers. Story 24. Every time I walk back here, you are never working, but somehow all your key performance indicators are the highest in our team. I work really hard for 2 hours a day and then relax. Story 25. My boss told someone that I can read her mind. She said we don't need to talk because I know exactly what needs to be done and that our office is very quiet because of all my mind reading. Obviously, I can't read her mind, but I was flattered because she knows I'm competent at my job, especially since it was a Japanese company where efficiency is highly prized. Story 26. I have bad social anxiety and somehow ended up working at a call center, speaking to hundreds of people every day. I hate the sound of my voice and thought I wasn't good. But the bosses kept telling me I was one of the most charming, well-spoken workers they had. They were very disappointed when I eventually quit due to burnout. One lady I was interviewing on the phone told me that I should smile more because she could hear the change in my voice, and it was lovely. As a guy, that was nice to hear. Story 27. I love your dimples. They really make your smile shine. I had been feeling really crappy about my looks lately, and hearing that brought a huge smile on my face. It made me happy the rest of my shift. Story 28. We hired you by mistake, but it was the best mistake we ever made. Not sure how to feel about that one. This was at the 5-year mark, and I had never been given the impression my hiring was accidental. Story 29. Hey, you look like one of the better carpenters on this crew, except sober and stronger. Turns out I've known the guy for years. and he used to be my boss. Small world. Story 30. I have your next mission because you are the only one brave enough to actually like going into the mystery rooms. Get in there and find Narnia. Crazy Coraline Girl. Story 31. When I used to work as a nursing aide at whatever facility I went to, supervisors would argue with each other to have me on their floor. I appreciate the vote of confidence, but I was also doing the bare minimum. However, for New Jersey nursing homes, that was somehow considered going above and beyond. Story 32. At a big law firm, my colleague working at the service desk told me that I had 0 complaints online from internal or external sources and I was holding the position for a 2-person job. Story 33. Went from an assistant, unnoticed, didn't have any work to do, to being the property manager of 100 high-end properties. I was going to move on, but they saw my potential. Great workplace, best I've ever been at. Very appreciated after a big restructure. Story 34. An old coworker, who I still talk to on the phone weekly, told me my singing voice reminded them of Shiloh Dynasty, which, if you've heard her, you know how massive of a compliment that is. Even if it's not the most accurate, it felt great. Story 35. A couple of years ago, I was doing lots of shifts at a place, and the boss told me that he should pitch a tent at the back for me because I am there all the time. I don't know if it was a compliment or if he thought I was a fool. Story 36. When a former leader, who was very high up in the chain, called my project the single most important project delivered all year, despite the incompetent people below him and above me giving me no acknowledgement for that same project. Story 37. Got an actual honest pat on the back when a supervisor came by and saw the work I had accomplished. It was a very loud environment, earplugs and earmuff hearing protection. Story 38. How come we do not hear anything about you or your account? Well, it is because I make sure there is nothing to complain about. Also, another one from early in my career in information technology help desk for a global firm. The boss called me into a meeting saying he listened to a call. He could not figure out how I turned the call around after identifying the problem and fixing the issue in about 1 minute total with just a couple of questions. Story 39. Had a patient tell me that seeing my beautiful smile made them feel better. Also had a patient tell me I had a fat bottom, just like Elizabeth Taylor. It was meant as an insult, but I took it as a compliment and thanked her. Story 40. Teacher here. I butt heads with a student all year about behavior and implemented many forms of consequences. But I try to not let it affect how I approach teaching them. They passed, but not by much. They stated they wanted to repeat the course. I said, with another teacher. They said, no, I want you again. Surprised, I asked why. Response. Because you cared about me and how I did. I think that was the best compliment I could get. Story 41. This was more a question, but anyways, I worked as a waiter in one restaurant. One time I asked an older lady, around 70 to 80 years old, if she could give me her empty plate because my hands were not long enough. I was trying to joke a bit. She answered directly, and what about your dick? I was shocked, but I answered, well, no one complained, I don't know. She just winked at me. That was a bit weird. Story 42. I was going through some personal things and was quite depressed. It impacted my productivity at work significantly, and I decided to be honest and inform my work so they could plan projects around me and not be caught off guard. My director told me not to worry, as my reduced productivity is still better than other employees' regular output. They also truly supported me in other ways as well. My issues are all resolved now, and I am still working there. Story 43. I work in employment for people with disabilities. I supervise a warehouse. One of the education assistants for a kid on work experience said to me, it's a nice atmosphere here. This one doesn't really feel like a sweatshop at all. Story 44. Emergency veterinary medicine worker here. A client came in with their young dog, who had been hit by a car and had a poor prognosis. I walked them through the euthanasia process and helped explain the aftercare, urn selection, and any extras they wanted, such as clay paw prints, photo urns, and nameplates. The whole process took a good 4 or 5 hours from when they arrived to when they left. The clients were spending time with their dog before saying goodbye. The older female owner, who seemed to be in her early 60s at the time, flagged me down in the treatment area. We had the dog on oxygen and additional technicians ready to start cardiopulmonary resuscitation if the dog crashed. She grabbed my hand and said, "Thank you for being kind and strong. I wish we'd met when my dog wasn't dying." I, of course, appreciate any time another human says thank you in any setting, but we rarely hear it in veterinary medicine unless you're the veterinarian. It was nothing special, but having someone on the worst day of their life thank me for doing my job is why I do my job and why I love it. Story 45. That I give great phone service. For example, our clients and customers would always ask for me because my customer service was always of a high standard. I actually got nominated for a staff award. No, I don't work in a brothel or a call center.